Welcome to another journey of all things new. Here with your girl Sjaanie-D.
And I am Narisha, the majestic one.
And today we have our guest, none other than Joan. Welcome, Joan, to All Things New.
Thank you for having me.
Our topic today is drug addiction. For those of you that are battling with drug addiction, we are discussing drug addiction today and how you can overcome it. So, Joan, what was your journey before you recovered in your life from a little girl to adulthood?
Okay. All right. So for me, I came from a structured family. Going back, so my mom and my dad separated or they divorced when I was really, really young. So before I was 2 years old, I stayed with my dad. So he's very pivotal in my life, you know, the pillar in my life. So I've got an older sister. And so we were with him for a while until he remarried. And I then got a new extended family, my stepmom and a brother and a sister. And so we were a blended family. And we had a very good life, you know, very structured, you know, good foundation, going to church. My father's Anglican, my stepmother was, you know, a Pentecostal, so we used to go to church. Her mum, which became my granny, was always there, you know, always telling us about God. In fact, she led my dad to Christ.
Wow.
And coming from an Anglican background, so there was always, you know, God in the center of everything. Yeah. The extended family that we got from my stepmom was also, all her brothers and sisters were also part of, you know, the kingdom and ministry and all of that. So there was the foundation that was already. I remember one Christmas day, I think I was about 7. We went to Rhema. And I gave my heart to the Lord. And at that time, you know, your little one, and you see today how the little ones go up because they just want to, you know, be there on the stage and go up. So I went and I remembered I gave my heart to the Lord, and I think maybe that was the day the devil had a target on my back. That's what I believe, you know, because already I felt that to go up and say, you know, I want to be, I want this, you know. But going back to that, I mean, we had a blended family. We were never short of anything. We had parents that both worked. My father had his own business. My stepmom was a chartered accountant. We stayed in a suburban area, coming from, you know, I stayed in El Dorado Park, and then, you know, going to the going to Model C school. I think at that time we were probably 5 coloreds, in that grade or in that standard. I'm revealing my age. We were in standards. So so we were, you know, that's how my life started. I mean, we were never short of anything, you know, experiencing life and vacations and, you know, all of that. And then, you know, I grew up, I became a teenager. And when I was end of grade 11, standard 9, I felt pregnant. And I then was very scared, you know. And obviously at that time, you know, your parents always say to you, if you just come home pregnant, but you don't really understand because you didn't really get the talk, you know. And at that time, you know, our families were always, children should be seen and not heard.
Yes.
So you know, you just not supposed to do something, but you don't know why.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And for me, I think that's, like with me being a mom, I always like to explain why, so that you know the outcome of it, you know?
Yes.
And back then, you just get told, you're not supposed to do that.
Yes.
You know? And so I was very scared. And then my stepmom found out. She could see the signs, and you know, she had a talk with me. We got confirmation of it, and I was going to drop out of school and go back and do that time the supplementaries. And then spoke to my teacher at the time, which was the vice principal, and she was like, no, you're not dropping out. You will stay as long as you can, and we will assist you. You know, what are your dates, all of that sort of thing. So I did my matric up until the June exams. I stayed at home after that. And obviously there was all that, taboo, because everybody knew at school and all of that. And but my support structure was really great. When my stepsister was also in matric, so when it was prelim, she'd bring me the papers and I'd study and stuff like that. My daughter was born in September. My exam started in October. So she was 2 weeks, and I had the privilege of going to my matric dance.
Wow.
And my, sometimes like you can't do this because now you have a baby and you can't do this, you can't do that. But I said my support structure was really, really good because they allowed me to go there. And she was only 2 weeks, but I went just to be there, and I didn't go to after party, and I didn't because I went, home. So that was it. And then my stepmom, and I say my mom because, from the age of 5, she's been in my life. My mom was also part of my life. So I used to go to her every second weekend. So it's not like she was totally not there. She was there. And I got to know her and be with her. And she remarried, and I've got other siblings. And so, there's a whole big blended family. So she was part of it as well, part of my life, then my stepmom took like 4 months unpaid leave to help me so that I could.
God bless her.
And you have that perception of stepmother, evil stepmother. I wasn't.
No, you were one of the lucky ones.
Yes, and
you're one of the lucky ones.
Yes, I'm very blessed. So she stayed at home so that she could help me and I could study. And I ended up getting my matric, and I stayed at home for a while. Very strict parents, because after matric it was you've got a child. So normally after matric you're going out, you're doing your thing, you're finding out who you are. But with me it was very like, no, you go once a month or twice a month. You're not out every week partying or whatever. You've got a child. So I had times to go out. I had that sort of thing. So they did that. But I can tell you that in that time I did experiment with drugs. Obviously at high school it was weed, I didn't smoke cigarettes. I preferred smoking weed than cigarettes, So that's what happened. I remember, I think I was 16. I was with cousins, and they were doing rocks. So I tried it. And I could just see what was going on. But then after that, because that was like an upper, and then they were doing downers, and I could see how, how they smoke and they fix and whatever. And for me, I was like, oh no. And then that's when it stopped. And that was like in grade 8. And then I didn't do anything until after school. So after school, I started smoking weed again. I started using ecstasy, going out to the clubs, that sort of thing. And that was my lifestyle. And then I got introduced to cat. I remember the first time I was introduced to cat. I had a very close cousin that passed away in an accident, and I think the day before his funeral, I was with my sister, and then I was offered, and that was it. And then that was now the thing that I was doing for a very long time. So. It was years that it went on, and then obviously it progresses. So the cat is not doing it anymore, buying so much after bag after bag after bag, and you're not getting where you want to be. So someone said, no, let's try crystal. And then you're not using as much, but the effect is so much better. So that's what happened. That's a drug of choice that I started using. And then my life really got really unmanageable, because it got to a point when I was still staying at home. In fact, when I was still on cat, I became very withdrawn.
That's what it does.
I stayed in my room.
Yeah, that's what it does.
I became very
depressed.
Yes. And my dad and my stepmom was like, what's going on here? So no, just leave me alone, I'm depressed, I'm this, I'm that, and whatever.
Yeah.
You know, you're giving all the reasons, but you're not really saying what you're catching on. And I was sent to a clinical psychologist, diagnosed with depression. I was on antidepressants, you know, all of that. And that is what I look at, families not understanding addiction. Because now you don't know the person is using drugs, but now you're adding other drugs on top of that. You know? So it's just not even, there's no way of getting out of it. So they think, oh, this person is just depressed and whatever. In the meantime, it's not that. And maybe, and for me it was maybe my way of dealing with things that I didn't want to speak about. You know, things that started surfacing. You know, as a teenager, you're a young mother. You know, now you start questioning. Okay, I'm a mother, so this is what I would do for my child. Why didn't my mother do that for me? Or why wasn't she there? Because I've got such love for my child. Was I not loved? So those are the questions that you have, and you can't answer it, but you don't, know
how to ask it, or who
to speak to about it. So what happens is that you start using another form to cope, and that's where the drugs comes in. I remember one session with a psychologist. And I realized that I've experienced a lot of loss in my life. I'm named after my granny, who I never met. While I was young, my grandparents passed away. So I had my stepmother's mother, so she played a big part. But my grandparents passed away, so I never had that roots, you know. And so that I've learned now in later years is also a form of trauma. You know, and dealing with a lot of losses. For me, I always didn't want to be alone. You know, I remember also in that time of being diagnosed with depression and being in a relationship, I whenever there would be a fight or a breakup, it would be like the end of my life, because I'm losing somebody again, you know, to a point where I even tried to take my life, because if I'm not worthy, you know, I can't be alone, and I'd rather die, you know, all of that dramatics. and that's,
tell me about it.
And that's what happens, you know. So it was a lot that I had to deal with, and just keep on using, you know, just to keep on numbing, but not really dealing with the root cause, not really dealing with the underlying issue, and putting up this facade. And to a point where I moved out of the house, and I had, you know, episodes where I came home high, and I just told my father and them that I'm the black sheep, and this and everything is, you know, it's never your fault.
The orphan spirit.
It's never your fault. But not realizing also, at that time my father was very much in, you know, part of church and stuff like that, and always praying for us. And, you know, I remember he had his church come to the house, and he was like, I want all of you there, and they were praying. And I got scared, because obviously everything's Holy Spirit led, and the bishop or the pastor at that time stopped at me. And he asked me, what's your name? And I told him. And he said to everybody, please pray for her. And I'm thinking, oh my word, why me? Why are you singling me out? But at that time, I knew that prayer was needed, because there was something that was happening in my life that needed intervention, that needed God's prayer, that needed answering, you know, that I was being held in that bondage. But yeah, life went on. I left home. I started staying on my own with my daughter. I was in a relationship. I got another daughter, and then I left him. In fact, he told my father that I was on drugs.
Your ex?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was so mad, because we're doing it together, but you know, but I look at it as a blessing in disguise, because that's when my father actually took action, and he was like, okay, this is the problem, so what do you want to do? So I was like, okay, you know, okay, I got nothing, I'm not working, and I had really good jobs out of school, and I decided, okay, and I was like, okay, you guys look for a place, you know, let me know when I must go, you know, but not really doing it for me, you know. And in that time, I met my now husband, Seth. It was a month before I was going away. and who he was also using. So you know how the circles, you just meet people.
Yeah.
So I met him, and you know, we got together, we went out, and we smoked together.
Yeah.
We used together, and I told him, look, you know what, can't be in a relationship. I'm going out. I'm gonna stop this thing. You know, I'm not gonna. My family knows about it. I'm not gonna use anymore and whatever. But you know, so yeah. And then it was about a month, and then I left and I went to Durban. I went to kind of like a halfway house type of safe house, a 21-day program. Yes, with
like a
steps.
so.
Yes, no. It was like a safe house for ladies.
Okay.
With alcohol addiction, drug addiction, and little did I know that the house mother there was actually my father's neighbor. They grew up together.
Oh wow!
So
God is good.
God is also orchestrating, because then he had that, you know, that peace of mind. But I also had somebody that knew my family, that would take me under the wing, and I learned, and I went to meetings, and I was there for supposed to be 21 days, and then it was a month. My dad was supposed to take me from there into a 6-month program, and she was like, no, she's ready, you know, she's equipped, she has the tools, whether you're going to keep her there for a year or wherever, she still has to live life. She still has to go out.
True.
Came home, I surprised Seth. I told him I'm not, I'm staying. He thought I was going to the next center, and I surprised him when I was home. And and then I was on this journey, trying to work the steps work that I learned, and for 9 months, and then I've said to Seth, you know, this is what I'm doing, and you can continue, and then I remember taking a joint again after being clean for 9 months, and that was it.
The relapse.
That was the relapse, and that was then. I think it was 2009 or 2010. It was 2010.
Yeah.
And then that led to me just going full on in addiction.
Definitely,
Yeah, all over again. And then with us, you know, we together for 17 years. We used for 12 years.
Yeah.
This month we both saved and delivered, set free from addiction for 5 years.
Praise God.
So. We had kids in between, you know. When we met, he had a daughter. I had 2 daughters at the time, and now we have another mine, ours, and ours. So we've got 5 girls.
Wow.
I mean, the 2 younger ones are, she's going to be 8 and 14 this year. The others are 20. Both of them, he's one and my other one 20, and the other one's 25. So for them, they were really part of
the addiction phase.
They were part of it. They experienced it. They went through everything. So I really am grateful to God for keeping that hand over them.
Amen.
And they didn't go into the same paths that we did, you know.
Amen.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us, from drug addiction to saving yourself, to be with God and God only.
Yes.
And it's an amazing journey that you've been on together, I mean, separation, then back together. It just goes to show God does have vision.
Yes.
Just we don't see it at the time.
Yeah.
So that is it for now, guys. Stay tuned. We'll be back.
Feed us some food, ready up your mind, shake up your moves. Working on your grin, feed us some food, ready up your mind, shake up your moves.
Welcome back. You all with you, girl Sjaanie-D, with all things new. Thank you for watching. For those of you that have not watched the first segment, our topic today is about drug addiction. And today we have our guest, which is Seth. Welcome, Seth.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, guys.
Welcome,
Thank you,
Seth.
So, Seth, what was your journey before recovery?
My journey of addiction started many years ago. I was very young when I started. I think as most people, we start off experimenting, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously, it starts off with maybe cigarettes, a joint here and there. That's how it started. I think I was probably in standard 6 when I started experimenting with cigarettes, standard 7 with marijuana or weed, whatever you want to call it. And slowly it progressed, you know, and it progressed onto other stuff. Okay, my friends all started smoking like mandrax and stuff, but that wasn't really for me. But I was more drawn to, you know, drinking on the weekend, ecstasy, all of that stuff. And eventually it just got deeper and deeper. I think by the time I got to standard 9, that's where things really took a bad turn in my life. A friend of mine was selling crack cocaine, they call it rocks.
Yeah.
A friend of mine was selling rocks, and I started doing rocks with him, and that was really like a turning point in my life where everything just went south, if I can call it. Everything started spiraling, you know. Everything, my social life, my family life, my schooling, obviously my marks dropped. Everything. Lucky I failed, I think standard 9, and I repeated, but I managed to matriculate, but my marks, even till now, it's like really putrid, and I was capable of doing a lot more. And from there, it just progressed. It just went on, and it was just a downward spiral. I started doing more drugs, different drugs. I spent many years in addiction. I spent close to 25 years in addiction. I smoked everything besides heroin or nyaupe. I don't know how you would like to refer to it, but I've done everything else besides heroin and nyaupe. And I just want to give God the glory.
Amen.
On the 14th of January this year, I celebrated 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Clean and delivered from everything. I don't even smoke a cigarette. I don't touch a cigarette. So God is really amazing, you know. It's only God's grace upon my life. And I truly feel that the reason why I spent so many years in addiction was because I tried to do it on my own. Honestly, I can tell you guys, I've relapsed. I can't even count the amount of times that I've relapsed. But it was because I tried to do it in my own strength, and I thought, you know, I got this, I can handle it. You come up with a million excuses while you're in addiction, like, oh no, it's manageable, or as long as things in the house are seen to my children, maybe I have clothing and groceries, it gives me the right to smoke. You know, things like that. So you come up with a lot of excuses for yourself, and you validate why it's okay for you to be smoking, which ultimately is not true. It's a false facade that you put up that everything is okay in your life. But going back to the addiction, so I tried many times to quit my substances, multiple substances at the time that I was using, and I'd stay clean for you know, months at the time, maybe 3 months. I think the longest ever that I've stayed away from substance, was for about 1 year and 2 months or 1 year and 3 months. But eventually, you always go back. And I would lie to myself. So I would maybe say, like, I can maybe do, let's just say, cat. Cat is not as bad as crystal, because at that time I was on crystal. So the enemy would come and he'd put all of these thoughts into your mind, and he'd tell you, you know, nobody's going to notice. Just do one, you know, nobody's going to notice. You can still go and you can still spend time with your family. Nobody's going to pick it up. All of this lies, and I'd fall for it every single time. And I'd go and I'll have a line of, let's just say, cat. And it wouldn't even affect me yet, or give me the desired effect that I was looking for. Immediately once I take it, I want my drug of choice, which is crystal. Immediately, and I'd go and I'd get a bag of crystals. But all of the enemy wanted was just for that small gap, just for me to relapse, because he knew once. And every time when you do relapse, it's so much harder for you to get up, and for you to take that stance, and for you to make the decision to say that I want to change. Also, the longer you spend after a relapse, the more amount of time that you spend also makes it more difficult for you. So for me, initially, I thought that it was, you know, people say you like things. No, I'm being honest. So I thought all along, throughout my years of addiction, I thought that I just like things, because I found myself with older guys, much older than what I was. I was always the youngest in our crowd. And it wasn't the savory crowd. It was the crowd that was doing the wrong thing. But I was always drawn to that, you know, drawn to the money, the cars, and it looked like they were living like a fabulous lifestyle, or a life of luxury. And that is what enticed me and what drew me to it. And they were selling drugs and, you know, all of these things. But I thought that I just like things, and that's why, or peer pressure, like they call it, you know, peer pressure. Sorry, I thought that was it. But ultimately, I got somebody that was helping me. It was a recovery coach, And this was, I think, in 2022, 2023. Once I've already, come into restoration, and he asked me numerous questions, and the way that he was so good, the questions, the way it was structured, actually you answering yourself, and you actually revealing certain things that you blocked out, because in addiction we block out a lot of things, things that we've done, things that you don't want to face, things that you are very ashamed of that you've done. So we tend to block it out, but he makes you face it. And I actually realized that the reason why I turned to substance abuse was because of rejection.
Wow.
From my dad, so him not being there, or being there, we grew up, he was in the house, but we never basically had a relationship. We never had the relationship that I wanted, the acceptance that I wanted. And that is why I was looking for the acceptance from the wrong people, you understand, doing the wrong things. It was a tough lesson for me to learn, but I'm glad that I learned it, because nobody wakes up
and
one morning and you don't decide to say, I'm gonna smoke a joint, or I'm gonna do whatever it is, or I'm gonna take a glass of alcohol, because number one, you don't know the taste, so you're not craving that taste. You don't know the effect that it's going to give you, so you're not after the effect. There's something that drives you to addiction. It can be a number of things. It can be a traumatic experience, growing up, things like that. We also tend to block out. I'm just going to use maybe abuse, sexual abuse, maybe if a child is abused at a young age, and then instead of facing it, you're going to block that out. And what addiction does is you turn to addiction, and it helps you numb that pain.
Yeah. Definitely.
But only for
a little while.
It doesn't last forever. So it's that you chase it, and that's why you keep on going back.
Yes.
You keep on going back because you want to feel that sort of relief, or that sense of relief. But ultimately you're just blocking it out, and you're not facing what it is, the reason why you actually. So I think it's very important to find out what drives you, the root cause. We call it a root cause. There's a root cause to your addiction. So I think that it's very important for you to find out what your root cause is, because if you don't know what the root cause is, you're going to spend many years in addiction. You're going to keep on going back, because you're not identifying the problem. You're not dealing with the underlying issue. They call it the root cause or underlying issue. So if you don't deal with it, you're going to spend many years, and as much, maybe even more years than I've spent, so I've spent many years in addiction, but I just give God the glory for what He's done in my life, where He's taken me from out of bondage with the enemy for many years,
At what point in your life did you feel like, I can't anymore, my life needs to change?
Sure, there's been a few instances in those 25 years. Now, being honest with you, so in that 25 years, there's been many times where I wanted to change my life, and every time when I ended up relapsing, it just made me feel more discouraged, made me feel, I reached a point where I actually felt hopeless. Not like committing suicide, hopeless, not like that, but to a point where I wanted to give up on recovery or on restoration, and I thought, you know what, this is me for the rest of my life. So I'm going to share a short testimony with you guys, if that's okay. So back in 2021, no, 2020, it was 2020, sorry, it was back in 2020, in the COVID period. I went through a very rough patch, a very bad patch of my life. I think that's when I hit my rock bottom. You'll always hear people talking about rock bottom, so that's when I hit my rock bottom. Myself and Joan weren't married at the time, but we were living together. We lost everything. We lost our place. Every month something bad happened to us, you understand? Like, we lost our place. We ended up going back to my mother and them. We lost our jobs. We lost each other. We separated. She moved to the east. I was still staying by my mother and them. I lost my car. I lost everything. But the ultimate rock bottom came when I was in Sun City, the prison in January. It was January 2021. I'll never forget. And I was 39 years old at the time. And I told myself that I'm basically 40, I'll be 40 that year. And I'm still in addiction. And basically everything that I've worked for was gone down the drain. I've broken relationships. Thank you. I've broken my relationships. I felt like hopeless, like I told you. Everything. I lost my family. For me, that was the most important part, was the family. I wasn't really worried about the car and the home and all of that. That was just the material things. But what hurt me was not having my children around. Because even though I was in addiction, we always had a very strong bond. I'd always try to play the father role to the best of my abilities. Well, this is with the two younger children. My eldest daughter, Mia, she is 20 now. She only knows me basically to be in addiction. So we never had a really good relationship. She didn't live with me. She lived with her mom, but she'd come there weekends to my place. But every weekend I wouldn't even be there, So with the two little ones now, with Chloe and Hannah, I do my best. Like I wake up in the morning, I take them to school, I try to fetch them from, to do my responsibilities to the best of, and not having them in my life really, really broke me. But I'm glad that it happened. I'm glad that everything, God orchestrated everything in such a way. Everything that I lost, all that events leading up, it was like He was giving me another chance, and I wasn't taking it, and I carried on, so I had to face those consequences. But ending up in Sun City for me was the greatest blessing. People look at me and ask me, how can you say that? But let me tell you, if I never ended up in prison, if I never lost everything, if God, how I ended up there, basically it was for that, what do they call it, for verification of address, where you have to just verify your address, and in 7 days you can get bail or whatever it is. So I had everything. I had my ID copy, I had the proof of address, I had everything, all the required documentation. But for some reason I still ended up going.
Wow.
At the time I was mad and I was furious because I didn't understand why I was going. But now when I look back and I realize that God orchestrated everything, because I had an encounter with the Holy Spirit inside Sun City. I received an e-wallet. I think it was like 650 rand. I bought myself 2 bags of crystal. I bought myself a Mandrax tablet. At that time I used to smoke it through a pipe. They call it a lolly. So I used to smoke crystal. I never used to sniff it. I used to smoke it. And I never had the pipe to smoke with. So one of my friends were in the cell at the bottom, and I asked him if I can use his pipe, and he said, okay, they're just using it, I have to wait a bit. In that time, I can't exactly tell you like how long it was, maybe I'd say roughly about maybe half an hour, 45 minutes. I prayed out to God. And I asked God, I said, God, please deliver me, I'm really tired. And I cried in the cell, and I cried, and I said, I'm really tired of all of this. I said, I'm going to stop, because with addiction, there's crime, there's a whole lot of things that's attached to it. It's not only addiction. There's abuse, there's physical abuse, there's a whole lot of things. And I was like a terrible person. And I cried out to God, and the only thing that I cried, and I made a deal, you'll hear people saying this, I made a deal with God. I made a deal with God. And I'm being honest, I said, if you can deliver me now from this addiction, I'm going to change. I want my family back. That's the only thing that I asked God for. I said I want my children, not even Joan at the time. And I'm being honest. I'm being really honest. It was just my children. I wanted my children with me, because me and Joan, so we spent many years together. We together for 17 years now. 12 years we spent together in addiction. So for when you have a partner that you're using with, it's very difficult. It makes it so much more difficult for you to come out, because there'd be times where I didn't want to smoke anymore. And Joan would want to smoke. And so I'd be okay, fine, I'll go and get you something, and you can do what you want to do. And then after maybe 5 or 10 minutes, I'd find myself obviously smoking with her, or vice versa. I'm not blaming her. Vice versa, it would roll to be reversed, and it would be me that says, hey, you know what? And she didn't want to smoke, and I would want to smoke. So it's very difficult for the two of us. So at that time, I made a decision with God, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna put God first. Something that I've never done. Something that I've never ever done before. I always tell people, God was the last thing I tried, and it was the first thing that worked for me. I prayed out to God. You guys won't believe me. I prayed out to God, and I said, God, please just deliver me from this addiction with the packets in my hand. This is how I was praying out to God, and I said, please just take this away from me. I don't want it. I want my family back. I want to be restored. Within that half an hour or 45 minutes, the pipe came up. And I had the pipe, and I was sitting with the pipe and the drugs, and obviously all I had to do was just throw it in and use it, and I ended up giving everything away.
Wow.
That was on the 14th of January 2021, and I never looked back. I had one encounter with God inside Sun City, and God delivered me instantly. God delivered me, and I've never relapsed. I've never had cravings, and it's only because of God. People don't understand when you say you don't have cravings, anything like that. I cover myself. And I know that I owe it all to God. So for me, prayer is vital. I've never been to a rehab facility in my life. I always thought that, rehab doesn't work. I've seen friends that go to rehab, and when they come out, we'd be chilling together, and they'd be smoking, maybe even the same day when they came out.
True.
So in my mind, this is just my opinion. I'm not saying rehabs don't work, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying in my mind, my opinion or my conception at the time was that rehabs don't work for me, because from what I've seen from my friends. So that's the only reason that I never entered into a program. But I was fortunate enough for God to intervene. But that was when it happened for me. I was 59 years old at the time, hopeless. I lost everything in my life, everything, every single thing that I ever worked for. And I mean, at that age, I was 39, I'd be 40 that year. I was 39 at the time, that was January, my birthday is in September. So I told myself, what do I do now? We had a family business, we lost the business. I was working for my brother. He lost the business, I lost my car, I lost the home, I lost my family. Who starts life at 40? These were the questions that were running through my mind. My life, in my eyes, was over. You know, and that's why I felt so hopeless. But God came and God turned my situation around.
Amen.
He restored my family.
Amen.
He restored everything. I'm working again. We have a home.
Amen.
That's blessed.
It's only God. No, it's only God. There's no other way.
Only the grace of
Yeah,
God.
it's only the grace of God.
No, that's amazing. I mean, your journey with God, coming from, and for me, I only think it's also just a mindset
Yes?
more than it is being admitted to a rehab. Because you can be in a rehab, but your mindset can be the same.
100%. I agree with what you're saying there, Sjaanie. You know, I think John mentioned it earlier. It's about the made-up mind.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the decision needs to come from you.
Yeah.
It needs to come from the person that is in addiction. Fair and well, your family wants you to go and all of that, but if you're going to do it for the wrong reasons, I like using this analogy. Let's just say you're doing it maybe for your children or maybe for your spouse. Let's use a spouse. So I go into a center and I don't really want it, but because my spouse is putting pressure on me, fine, I'm going to make the decision. I'm going. In the center, I'm not really taking in what they're offering me, the tools that they're giving me to use when I come out. So in the beginning, because I didn't want it, I'm going to look for the first excuse. So when I come out of the center, whether I spend 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, whatever it is, when I come out, the first argument we have,
Yeah.
I'm going to go back.
It's a trigger. It's a
I'm gonna,
so-called trigger.
but ultimately
It's
you
a
had
so-called
reservations
trigger.
already. You had reservations already in your
Yeah.
mind. You already knew
It's
that
a
you were going to
trigger.
go back.
You
So
call
you're
it a
telling
trigger,
yourself, this
that's an
person
excuse.
doesn't see what I've done for them. I've sacrificed 6
Yeah.
months of my life, you know, to please her basically. And now look, she's still going on with me. And you're going to use it as an excuse.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it is an excuse, and you're going to go back. So it takes a made-up mind. Centers do help, and they do give you the tools, and they do really assist. I've seen how centers assist, but like you said, it's a made-up mind. You need to make up your mind before you go into the center. You can't depend on the center to bring about that change. You need to want that change bad enough. And the center will give you all the tools. They'll tell you how to cope with triggers.
Yes.
They'll give you we call it a toolbox. So when you come out of the center, you have all the tools. It's just you need to know how to use those tools. But you need to apply what you're learning in the center. Because if you're going in and you're learning everything and you're not going to apply, there's no application when you're coming out. It defeats the purpose once again.
Yeah, very true.
So there you have it, guys. A story from what drug addiction can do to giving your heart to God. And that is all that we all need, is God in our lives, whether it's on drug addiction, even you have on alcohol or any other addiction. God is the one person that brings you through it all, with a mindset of setting it on God and nothing else. Thank you so much for watching us. We'll be right back. Please don't go away. Welcome back to All Things New with the girl Sjaanie-D. Today on our show, we're still with Joan and Seth. So Seth and Joan, tell us about how you met. A short little preview.
Okay, so I was in Bosman. So Seth is originally from Bosman and my sister was staying there. So I needed a place to stay. And this was due to, addiction. So I was staying with my sister. And my sister's boyfriend was in the same circle with Seth's friends. And we met like that. There is a backstory to it. He always says that I was the one chasing him. But anyway, that's a story for another day. But yeah, that's how we met. And we met in the same circle of friends. And that was in the circle of addiction. He was using, I was using. And that is where we were drawn to each other. Yeah.
Wow. And in the journey that you made of being with drug addiction, how did it go? Like, was there challenges?
Oh yes, definitely. So as I mentioned previously, like we were together for 17 years, right? We used for 12 years. So in that 12 years, it was very difficult. we triggered each other. You know, we wanted to, when he didn't want to, I wanted to. It was, our fights were very explosive. Our arguments were really, really...
Lots of shouting and
lots of
swearing.
screaming and, you know, chaotic. To the point where we do it in front of our children. You know, to a point where there's sometimes where I don't want to keep quiet now. I want to say my say, you know, which can lead to provoking. Sometimes you just get a smack to know, you know, back like, what did you just say, type of thing. But that's the reality of addiction, is because there's so much more that comes with it. The abuse, the violence, whether it's emotional, verbal, you know, all of that comes with drug addiction. And that is what we endured for a long time. I think to a point where we even got each other locked up, you know, that happens.
Yeah.
So, you know, so we've really been through a lot, you know.
Seen each other at our worst, I'd say.
Yes, yeah.
And you know, the beautiful journey of God is that irrespective of you both being on it, some partners separate and they remarry. But what I've seen with both of you, God still kept you all together, and you are following the journey with God. It's not every couple that goes through that.
Yeah.
No, but there needed to be a separation. So when I just came out of Sun City, I wasn't there very long, like a week, but when I just came out, Joan was living in the East. And that's when I made the decision, you know, to put God first. And I even told Joan, I said, Joan, you know what, this is a decision that I've made. I'm changing my life around, you know. I want my children back. I told her, I even went as far as saying, I don't care if you start smoking. That's your journey, but I'm turning to God. And I told her, so for about 8 months, we were separated. But during that 8 months, it gave me time to focus on God and to spend time in the Word and for God to really start restoring my mind, you know.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time reading His Word, lots of praise and worship, just time to myself. I even locked not literally locked, but I spent a lot of time in my room where I wouldn't associate with anybody. The only time I go to the shop even was maybe to buy a pack of cigarettes. I was still smoking cigarettes at the time. So I was secluded for a long time, but we needed that break from each other because being together, like we said, we always influence each other. So I believe that we needed to have that even though it was 8 months, but it put a lot of things into perspective, you know. For me, I don't know.
Yeah, no, look, I can tell you that for me, it was a prayer being answered. Because I used to pray, it like being in that toxic relationship, and it was toxic. You're like, everyone's telling you to get out of the relationship, but you see the goodness in somebody, you see someone's heart when you aren't using, because there were times when we tried to get off it, you know. So you see the goodness of that person, and I prayed and I said to God, can you just take this man out of my life? And I said, I know there's a Boaz for me, but it's not this man. Please, can you know? And that's when the prayer goes out, but God transformed, you know. And I believe that the transformation that happened for him with his encounter with God was my prayer answered, because it had to take that made up mind for him to make the decision as the head of our house, and for me to lead and submit to the leading of the head of our family, you know. So it was very important. Well, for me, that is how I see it, you know. And God coming in and answering my prayer by, you know, working with Seth and Seth making up that his mind, and now I can't influence him anymore. You know, I can't trigger him anymore. Now he's strong because he's made up his mind, and that's important because as the head of our home, he needs to be accountable to all of us, and he made that choice to decide this is no more what we're doing. As for me and my house, I serve the Lord.
So tell us about the journey with you obviously entering into the ministry, assisting with drug addiction.
Okay.
So, I don't know, I think Joan mentioned previously that with the center, we started working with the center, started placing people in the center, and then we found out that they actually have a ministry. And we were invited by one of our friends who was at the ministry in the time, and he invited us to visit. And with the first visit, in the ministry, you know, I don't know, we just felt like at home because the visions aligned. They had a heart for people, and that's the same place where we found ourselves. The day when we got home from after the first visit, I told Joan, I'm going back. This is, you know, where I want to be. And we joined the ministry, and eventually we started a support group as well. We felt the need to help the people in the community. So when we just started our recovery journey, Joan was like, now we're planning all of these things, getting a place again, moving out, all of that. And Joan mentioned, and she said, no, we need to move out of Bosmont because of the influences in the area. But I looked at it differently. Lots of people look at it like that, like, you need to get away from your friends, their bad influence, or the amount of drugs that's in the area. But for me, the way that I seen it was that no matter where I go, I'm going to face it. It's going to be there. I know how to get it. I don't care where I'm going to.
Yeah.
I can go to Durban, Cape Town, wherever. I'm going to find somebody that will provide what I need, So I told John, I feel that we should stay in this area because I want to help the people in the area. And God has given us that opportunity where we are now running a support group. We are assisting people, various communities, not only our own community, people reach out from all over.
Yeah.
So we assist people through the support group. Ultimately, we do the intakes also for the center where they can go away and they will spend more time at the center and just build their relationship back with God. Ultimately, we put our faith and our trust in God because we know it's only God at the end of the day that's going to deliver you from whatever you are facing. God is going to heal you. God is going to restore you. So, but Joan, you can...
Yeah. So we fellowship at a ministry called RAP Ministries. Sorry. It stands for Restoration Apostolic and Prophetic Ministries. They are an established ministry for, this year would be 14 years. The leaders of that ministry were given a vision by God to start a center which is based out in Magaliesburg. It's called Kugel Restoration and Refuge Center. And it was a center basically to help restore people, but it's hard to restore people if they're still in the same environment, So it was a place to get them out of the environment that they are so that they can get away from all the noise and they can, get back to building that relationship with God and finding purpose. For with the restoration comes purpose. You find who you are and what God has created you to be, So we work very closely with the center. We volunteer there, relieving the management and the staff on weekends. And also, like Seth mentioned, we do the intake process. Yeah. So we have a lot of families reaching out from different provinces, and we start that process with, doing screenings, thorough screening of the individuals, seeing that they want the help, because that's the important part, is that, the individual wants the help. It starts off with the family reaching out, but then we interact with the individual and encourage them, because it's nice for them to know that it's not just, you're not just phoning somebody doesn't know, but we are walking the walk. Yeah. We are on this journey of restoration. So it's nice that we can relate to them, because we've been there. Yeah. We've been scared to take that step. We've been scared to ask for help, So there's that encouragement. So we'll do that process of screening and having them come to support group and preparing them to go to the journey. But the nice thing is that when we're there, we volunteer, we see the growth, we see the change that's happening in their lives, and they're just so excited to let us know what's been happening and where they are in this journey. And, just seeing how families get restored in that is really, really amazing. So that is what we do in the ministry. Obviously with the leadership of our church as well. We told them that there was when we started in the ministry, there was prayer and intercession on a Tuesday, and we said there's a need for support group, so they gave us the go-ahead to start a support group, which is now running for 3 years, under their covering, under their leadership as well, and that is where we, like I said, prepare people for this journey. And I mean, what was given to us so freely, we can only just but give to the next person and help walk with them as well.
So within the ministry, is it only drug addiction? Within the drug addiction, actually, when you are done, when you're done with your course, is there courses within the center that you do so you can go into a job when you come out of it, or is it just finish the course and leave?
Okay, so with QRRC, short for the Kugel, so they house about 70 people in Magaliesburg, and that is where the individuals spend 6 months in the program. There is skills development that they offer. Yeah. So if you look at a typical day, they'll spend time in a few hours in the skills. We call it skills. So whether it's different skills as bakery, agriculture, maintenance, there's sewing, there's housekeeping. So all of these skills people are learning, and they're spending 6 weeks in one area and then moving to another area, so that they are well equipped, that when they do go out, they can start becoming a contributor to society. They, sometimes people spend so many years not working in addiction that how do you get back into society? How do you get back into the working world? And if they find it difficult, there's a skill that you've been taught where you can become your own person, your own boss, if I could say, in terms of business-wise, and opening up a bakery for yourself, or a confectionery, starting agriculture, that sort of thing. So those are the skills that the center offers at Magaliesburg QRRC. And obviously in the afternoons they've got the life skills that they do, where they have one-on-one sessions with either the pastor one day, the social worker the next day. We've got a nurse that's there that provides them with the self-care and self-awareness and looking after yourself. We've got Apostle Quentin and a Prophet Girl who does also your counseling. They're very big, even in our ministry, with counseling, with deliverance, and we believe that you need to be delivered, and not just in recovery but to restoration. So all of that is part of the program at QRRC. We find that people are not our families are not yet ready to receive them, and there's a lot of work that needs to happen with the families. So we are trying to get the families involved in that process, in that 6-month program as well, where we're putting in families and having family meetings and family workshops, because you can have someone go away and change, but the situation at home still remains the same. So the families need to come, and they need to have those talks of forgiveness and amendments and stuff like that. So when the person comes home, they can continue. But for a person that is not able to go back home, we've recently opened up, QRRC has recently opened up a second center, which is in Krugersdorp, and that is almost like a 3-phase center. It's a shelter, so the individual can possibly go there, and they'd be able to have a roof over their heads, food to eat, but at the same time go out and go look for work and work. Build up some capital to get your own place, that sort of thing.
That's nice.
Yes,
like a halfway house.
Yes, like a halfway house type of thing.
And I think many people that come out of rehab changing their mindset, and then the families don't want to change their mindsets, and it's challenging for that person that came out, and I have to find yourself, I can't go back to that. So that is really nice for them to have a safe house, so they can actually be on their feet after that.
Yes, no, definitely.
So guys, thank you for sharing your journey with us, and thank you for everything. So guys, that's it for today. We will obviously give you the details at the bottom regards to where you can contact Joan and Seth regarding if you have somebody that is struggling with drug addiction. If you have anybody that, even yourself, if you are dealing with it, you're more than welcome to contact them, and they will be more than welcome to respond. And that's it for today. Thank you for joining us at All Things New. Until next time.